First off, I want to thank the brave men and women who work behind the wall. I want to thank them on a national level because their job goes unrecognized.
How do they try to turn a guard?
Well, correctional officer. Sorry, I apologize. But correctional officer. How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi, host of Tier Talk. Guys, I got an email early this morning asking for my opinion on the Epstein case. And basically, you got the two officers now, Tova Noel, Michael Thomas. They're set for trial around April 20th. And people want to know, should they be held responsible for what Epstein did? Now, I have an opinion on that. So we come back from our sponsors. I'm going to discuss that. But I'm also going to discuss where I feel this is going to go. Now, guys, this is only my opinion. I try to stay away from specific events. I try to generalize it. But I'm going to answer the question that someone emailed me. I think it's an interesting question, but I think it has a bigger perspective here, which is ultimately going to be just putting a black eye on what we do. We all know that. So maybe it's good to get some information out there so we can kind of separate ourselves from the people that don't do their job. I mean, that's the key. Because if we don't do that, we kind of get looked at in the same manner as the people that don't do their job. So, and it's crazy, guys. I've been doing this channel for a while. We take these tiny steps forwards, but huge leaps backwards. So maybe it's good sometimes to contest anything that could possibly have a negative perspective of what we do. So that's probably going to be what my effort here in this video is. But we'll figure it out because I think about it as I video. So, all right, guys. So if you haven't, the show Tier Talks for you, brave men and women that work in corrections. So please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. The bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. We'll go to our sponsor and we come back. Let's discuss the Epstein case a little bit. All right, stand by for our sponsor.
I wanted to attend a university that had an intelligence program. I wanted to look at problems different. I wanted to increase my critical thinking abilities. AMU offered those avenues to expand. Obtaining your degree as an adult, you're actually paying yourself and investing in yourself. You can't put a dollar on it, it's priceless. It's something that can never be taken away from you.
American Military University. Learn from the leader.
Thank you guys for listening to our sponsor. Now, I did videos on Epstein a while back. Me and Russ Hamilton were partner up on some videos, basically videos that explain how a suicide happens in a prison. And I did a video that was trying to push away from people making the assumptions that the officers just didn't do their job. Now, I know what the end result is now. Now, there's obviously the evidence is out there that the officers didn't tour. You know, they were just either sleeping or shopping online. But at the time when I made this video, we didn't know that. So I thought it would be fair for us just to ask why. So basically, if the officers aren't touring, can we at least know why they didn't tour before we jump the gun and automatically assume the negative? I mean, remember, this was an understaffed facility. So my first thoughts, however unlikely they may have been, was maybe they were assigned somewhere else. Maybe something happened. Again, however unlikely, but again, just trying to be objective and trying to be fair when putting information out there. I don't want to just jump towards the negative. But don't get me wrong, in the back of my mind, that was in the back of my mind, that they could be sleeping. Not shopping, but that it's third shift and most likely they could have fell asleep. Now, the other argument I had was, well, how many times were they mandated? How many times did they work doubles in a row? Again, you have an understaffed facility. So what I was doing was trying to look at the system down, just to try to be fair until I ran out of excuses, if you will. The problem with the people getting mandated too is when you get people that volunteer to work the overtime. So now if you volunteer to work the overtime and you're caught taking it down, or you just volunteer to work the overtime and sleep, you should be held responsible. You can't blame the system at that point because you're volunteering. You know, you want to make that money. You're saying you're able to make that money. I show more sympathy towards those who are getting hit that didn't expect it and don't volunteer. Because again, you know, maybe the body's not ready for it. They've done a few in a row. Either way. So, with that said, what happens when a major incident occurs at a facility, the prison or the agency is going to kind of be in a bit of a divide. And we're seeing that now. Check out this video from the lawyer.
We believe that when all the evidence is presented about how the system was ran and how they were severely short-staffed at all times, maybe you'll have a different appreciation for what was going on. Now, understand that many times, in many cases, people in employment may not follow all of the exact procedures that they're supposed to, but does that mean that they're going to be indicted and put in a position like this where they're going to face going to jail and losing their whole career? I want to say on behalf of Michael Thomas that he's dismayed that the U.S. Attorney's Office has decided to charge him in this matter. We believe that charging Mr. Thomas is not the resolution in this matter. We had hoped that the U.S. Attorney's Office would make an effort to try to address the systematic failures with respect to the Bureau of Prisons. Instead, they chose to indict Mr. Thomas and charge him with 4 counts in an indictment, which Mr. Thomas is fully prepared to defend, and we look forward to our day in court, and we're hopeful that there will be a positive resolution.
So now the lawyer, in order to protect his clients, he's going to look to hold the system responsible. And yes, this system has concerns. I mean, the big talk now is how understaffed this facility is. But what irks me is that when we do have these concerns, because I do expect the system to help me do my job. I expect the system to give me the means to carry out my job and be effective. But in this case here, even though we have all these other issues in context of what happened, the individual still said that they did tours when they didn't tour. So they lied in the logbook. They lied on a government piece of paper, if you will, which is something you don't do. Remember, guys, we're put in a position of trust. That's a high level of trust. So when you lie, you will be held accountable for that. And that's where we see these 2 officers at. So again, we know we have these issues. We know these issues exist. But when you go ahead and say you did something that you didn't do, that now becomes the focus, and the system now can step aside. Because at that point, they're not focused on understaffing. They're not focused on the other concerns. They're focused on the fact that you said you did something that you didn't do. Again, in my mind, I still have the context. But at the end of the day, the context doesn't matter when you have people saying they're doing something that they didn't do. Because when an issue occurs, I talked about that divide, which means that management is going to look at policy and procedure. What went wrong? Was it policy or was it the individual? And the people from the front line, like we have now, you heard what the lawyer said, they're going to look at the system. And they're going to blame the system in an effort to alleviate their client from the responsibility of what they were supposed to do. But what irks me again is the fact that they didn't even make the attempt to do what they were supposed to do. They did not tour. So the argument that the system failed them is fruitless because you lied. What better approach would have been is, hey, if I couldn't tour, write in the logbook. Sorry, I couldn't do my tour today because I was sent elsewhere. You know, whatever the excuse would have been. But the excuse has to be an effort to do the job, but just couldn't because of whatever happened. So, the question was, should they be held responsible or accountable for the death of Epstein? I mean, technically, right now, the responsibility comes from the fact that they falsified the logbooks. That's where the responsibility comes in, or the accountability. You know, all we can do is delay. If an inmate wants to take their own life, trust and believe, all we can do is delay that attempt, delay that impulsive moment. But if they're focused to do it, they're going to find ways to do it. We have a lot of lives that we're responsible for. So an inmate could easily manipulate their way back from one road to the other. And then when we're distracted or doing something else, or, you know, on the other side of the tier, okay, I have about 15, 20 minutes, let's get it done. I mean, think about it, it only takes 4 or 5 minutes. And I think I'm overestimating that. Maybe it takes even less. But with that said, it's not like they're responsible for putting their hands on that person's neck and taking them out, but they didn't do their job. And they're going to be held to that level of accountability. So the job expects you to do something, you said you did it, and you didn't do it, then yes, you're going to be held responsible to the standards of that policy. And now that policy was not followed. So at that level, yes, they will be held responsible or accountable, whatever you want to use. And that's just kind of where we're at right now. That's just... It's sad because I know for a fact that this is going to put a blemish on who we are and what we do. Because when an incident like this happens, now you have to go ahead and check the whole shift. You know, check everything. This is a complacent facility. What's going on? Go back and view videos upon videos upon videos to see, is this the only concern, or is this a culture here? Is this something that we have to dig into a little bit deeper? You know, is this the first time these 2 officers fell asleep? Or they fall asleep every shift they work? Are these the only 2 officers that fall asleep? Or is the whole facility fall asleep? What are the supervisors doing? You know, when this person wasn't checked on for 8 hours, where were the supervisors? You know, they should have at least one tour, door by door, cell by cell, to make sure that, you know, the watch is being done. So again, complacency may be running rampant at this facility. And what gets me upset is when people look to blame the system, when in actuality, maybe the system had a role in it. I'm not denying that. But you guys are given a window for the system to step aside and point the finger at you. And that's when we never get that productive change. Because in the end, people are going to say, well, wait a second, there's nothing to do with understaffing. These officers never did their tour. And why didn't they do their tour? Because you can see them on video sleeping. You can see them on video shopping on the internet. You know, it's upsetting when people try to use what we need to use actually on a higher level to really note our concerns, but now you're using it just to use it. But in the end of the day, you can't defend it, because you can argue how this facility has all these concerns, but that's not the reason why you didn't do your job. You have people all over this country right now that are dealing with these concerns, but they're doing their job, and they have valid arguments. Can't be in 2 places at once. I'm touring here, and you can see them actually touring. And now something happens on this side, well, that's a good argument for them. Hey, I'm on this side touring, but we don't have enough people, so unfortunately I have to leave one post for another to, you know, check on the inmates. So while I'm over here, this inmate decided to be foolish and do this. You know, those are arguments we got to bring to the forefront. But what sends us back in our progressive move forward is when it's on the individual. Yeah, the facility's understaffed. Okay, but you said you toured and you didn't tour. So the system's going to just sit here for now while you go ahead and figure that out. You lied in an official logbook. So again, the system's going to go sit over here while you figure that out. So do I think they should be held responsible? Yes. Not because they put hands on the inmate, but because they didn't do their job. And they lied. And now they're going to try to use the system as an excuse, when in actuality, it was them that didn't do their job. And that's the sad part. That's the sad part. I hate being aggressive. I hate doing this. I really do. That's why I try to lean away from it. But in the end, maybe it's good to get in front of it, because we know this is going to put a blemish on what we do and who we are. So maybe at the end, it's just a reminder of telling people, hey guys, just be mindful, this isn't the rest of us. All right, guys, if you haven't, the show Tear Talks for you, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. That bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. Stay safe.
Whoa.